everybody. I think just about everybody's back from lunch, but we'll get started. This afternoon's first topic, we're going to be talking about kind of facilities by the numbers. How can we help each other with data sharing, and what data might we share? And then how can we use that in business cases to help? We all have to build budgets around projects and priorities. And so how do we do that with information that we all have individually, but maybe we could be better, just like Keith was talking about this morning, we're better together. And that business case might be stronger if we were able to share it. And so what are those things that would be the essential things that we should be sharing? Keith has did you email that to me? Keith has a presentation just to kind of start tickling the brain a little, and we'll run through that real quick. But then I think that's really the key discussion here is what are the things that are business planning or something we need to sell to our administration that we need data, and what are those things? And then how can we start to figure out we all have that in common, and then figure out what that KPI is and figure out how then we share that. So we'll get started here.
One of the things I wanted to do on this was just put out some numbers, excuse me, just to get people to thinking, and as Andrew and I were discussing about some of the things that we face, and then how are we going about doing what we do, and as Andrew said, the number of work orders per year, all the KPIs that we look at, and how do we do things. And this is from the U.S. Department of Labor. The U.S. Department of Labor annual inflation rate for the entire United States is 8.6. And this was, as you can see, published on June 10th. However, the inflation rate for Florida alone is over 11%. And this is kind of based off of some of Polk County's construction projects. The numbers that we're seeing, that the inflation rate on them is over 33%, over a third higher than what we've been facing. As I stated earlier, 17 kW generator, normally a 16-week lead time on it, is now 52 weeks, so supply chain issues. Labor shortages. Polk County Roads and Drainage is at a 23%. Polk County Utilities, it's 23%. And our Facilities Management Division is at 20%. Our maintenance electrician vacancy rate, 45%. It's hard to replace electricians, folks. You just can't go grab somebody off the street and 2 weeks later teach them how to be an electrician. That just does not happen. So how do you build your business case to overcome these challenges? What are the KPIs that you use to track these things? How do you do the things that we do on a daily basis? And that's what this discussion is about. And it's about everybody joining in, because if you guys don't talk, and I know it's right after lunch, this is going to be a really short presentation.
So I guess then, even if we just go around the room, and discuss what do we measure. So I'll tell you, for my team, we produce what we call the report card every month, and we're looking. And you saw I have 3 divisions within facilities management. They all have 3 completely different areas of kind of work. So in our real property and planning, there's a bunch of longer-term acquisition, disposition projects, and those are kind of longer-term project-type tracking. In construction renovation, we're looking at project tracking there. What phase is it in? What % are we complete? How much spend do we have left? And O&M, which all of us know, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Work order completion times, quantity of work orders. We personally have service level criteria. So we assign each one of our work orders a priority level, and that's kind of our promise to our customer. If it's an emergency work order, we'll resolve it in 24 hours, and regular work, 5 days, just routine work, 15 days. And so each of those priority levels we look at. My goal is to have those, on average, every month, 95% completion or 95% in compliance with the service level. So those are some of the measures that we're looking at here, at least on a monthly basis. I'm just curious what others are looking at, and if there's similarities that we're all measuring sort of the same stuff, then those are maybe some things we could start to compare.
So as far as Brevard County, similar stuff. We never did any kind of metrics before I got there, and we are not even near being completed, setting up something that we can actually have tangible results to show. And the reason is that even if I set up some kind of level of services expectation, hey, emergency's got to be done within 24 hours, routine 7 days, we don't have adequate manpower to do the job. So if you ever get a situation that you lose manpower, are you allowed to drop your level of services?
Yeah, so the level of service piece, I think it's important even when you don't have the right manpower, because if that is what your customer requirement is and you're not able to meet your customer requirement, that gap, then that you can turn that into hours. And hey, that's your business case to say, I need 2 more maintenance techs. If you want me to make my customers happy, which hopefully that's a goal of your administration, make your customers happy. My customer is the internal services or all the other departments across our organization. If you want them to be happy, if you want them to be successful in their work to produce to the frontline citizens, I need this to fill that gap. So I think no matter where you are, I would start implementing measures immediately, because it starts to then build the case for what the missing piece is.
For my?
So every couple of years, we do this document that we called our, in fact, last year I presented it, our service level agreement. And when we go out, Doug? Yeah, there's Doug. Doug and I will go do the rounds with all the departments and just talk about, hey, how we doing for you guys? Are you happy with our level, or with the work we're providing, in the timeliness that we're providing it? And typically that's remained pretty good. And so, but when we did that initially, that's how we sort of set those bars. That, one day seemed to resolve an emergency issue, seemed okay. That doesn't mean we're going to have everything fixed and repaired. If the water overflows in bathroom number 1 here at the library because the whole toilet is jacked up, We will have turned the water off. That resolved the emergency issue. We need to then order the toilet, replace the toilet, plumb it in, get it back up and functional. Okay, that's a routine work. As long as there's other toilets available. Now, we might bump that up to urgent work, which is that in-between zone. We've got 3 levels, emergency, urgent, and then routine. But if it is the only toilet in the facility or the only men's toilet in the facility, okay, that gets bumped up. And then that becomes, that's a little bit higher priority. So, yeah. All the time. Yep. Yep. Your operational budget. Yep.
What service level, should be provided versus what's provided.
So we all face that, I'm sure. You've got your easygoing departments who are go along, get along, we're all on one team, and you've got the hard chargers that think that they're special.
So what do you do, my question, I guess, would be then, what do you do in those instances when you're measuring your service levels?
Yeah, so special, we try to reinforce what the service level is in a conversation, that this is what we typically do. But if they keep pushing, our job is to make them successful. It goes back to our mission. So you heard what our county's mission is. Our purpose statement as a department, we serve as a foundation for success. So we're kind of playing off of our little bit of building-related foundation there, but we want them to be successful. And so our job is to serve them so that they're the most successful. And if they're not happy, we're not happy. Does that mean they're always going to be happy? No. But you try hard. And, Doug can attest, we sometimes fail them. But it is, you take every opportunity that you can. So every month, we as a leadership team, all my supervisors, all my managers get together, and we're reviewing that, what we call the report card. Those metrics are on there. But at the same time, every month we push out to the entire organization kind of a status email of, hey, these are the big things that have occurred over the last month. And you got to kind of be your own self-promoter. And in that status kind of bulletin newsletter that we send out are our metrics for especially O&M. We don't do it on the contract stuff. We just provide project updates on the real estate and the contract stuff. But on the O&M side, I want them to see, hey, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, this was our standard, this was where we were at. And we let them know. And it's kind of just, hopefully you just keep preaching the message and it gets out there that this is our standard.
Hey, Andrew.
It's sort of like with set point temperatures. Everybody wants that special temperature that's perfect for them, but no, we've got to establish standards, and these are our standards.
Are you using your CMMS to send out surveys after the work order is completed?
So, sort of. And so that's another thing that's on our report card is our customer metrics as well. So we do send out customer surveys after every work order, but the way we do that is actually a link in the CMMS we've plugged in. It has the the auto-populated email that it'll send them, your work order's done. Please tell us how we've done. Here's the link to the SurveyMonkey. And we use SurveyMonkey as our feedback tool. And the paper. Oh, good point, Doug. Yeah, and so the other thing that our technician does, they've got a piece of paper that's about the size of this that they fold in half. And on one side, it says, your work order has been completed. Thank you for allowing us to serve you. Work order number, the technician's name, and then on the inside, it has the 4 questions that we ask in our survey. Did we complete it on time? Did we do it with good customer service? Doggone it. What's the timeliness? Quality. There it is. Yeah. Quality, professionalism, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. So that's what we look at, and that's just on a 1 to 5 scale. And so that has the SurveyMonkey link on it as well, but that's kind of a reminder that you can leave on the requester's desk. You go, hey, we were here. Because a lot of the times we work magic. We're elves, we're fairies, and they never know we're even there, and they know it's back, the lights are working again, but they've never seen our tech. This is just one extra way for them to know we were here, and we care about you, and we want to know your feedback. So just one other thing that we do. But
I'll let John probably speak more to this, but we do a quarterly performance measures with all of the different sections in our department and kind of go over, including the customer service survey. We send that out at the bottom of our emails. And I figured you probably had more to say on this.
We can certainly share a copy, but I would start out by saying I used to do this and say, this is a pain in the ass. But then when we went for our APWA certification, again, I know it's public works, but it did pretty much make us sail through our certification when we pulled up all our performance measures. All of a sudden, the other inspectors are like, okay, good, and it was really relatively easy. But we just, what we do is we're reporting every quarter on facility condition index. That's my team that goes out, and they, over a period of every 5 years, every building will be looked at once for major repairs and renovations. SurveyMonkey, everybody does the same thing you described, and we call that our satisfaction index that we report on. Our facility operating costs, which we do on a square foot basis, we'll do it for maintenance, we'll do it for support services like cleaning, janitorial. We even have security on there. We were using BOMA as a standard to measure against, but they haven't updated recently, and so we'll see what happens with that. We may shift to another standard. We used to report on the facilities utilization index, which was square foot per employee. Well, that got blown to hell during COVID. So now I'm actually developing our own kind of standard, which tries to measure in the post-COVID world with hybrid and people, some 100%, some remote, some measurement of how effective we are assigning space. Our project delivery rate is another thing we measure. This is the smaller projects. You can do it with the larger projects, but somebody mentioned on time, on budget, things like that. We also measure our, it's called a project delivery index, but really it's a measurement of, it's something the repairs group does that measures they take literally their costs versus the dollar amount of projects they're doing. And we use there's actually a good benchmark from California that's, I think it's like you want to be below 14% over. It's a measure of overhead. How effectively are we delivering all the projects? Then, of course, there's some financial measures. Scroll that one down. Sorry. There's some financial measures, and then there's some that there was no benchmark, so we literally make our own up based on historical data just to see, we start measuring against ourselves. But I have a lease portfolio. I got 100 properties under lease. So how are we measuring the performance on that with all these nonprofits and all these people in our space? We're making one up. Somebody's here from security. We're literally doing one on security progress report with all our initiatives on that. Parking. we've got 1,300 parkers. We got to report on that. And sustainability. And happy to share this. I can send it to you as an example of what we do.
Yes. So just to add a little bit to what have been said already, I think a lot of us do the same thing when it comes to performance indicators. Some of the things that we have been doing also is on the preventive maintenance side, and just creating a schedule plan for your HVAC maintenance, elevator maintenance, so on and so forth, so to make sure that everything is in working order. Another example is generators. One of the things that we weren't doing before that now we're doing is we found that whenever you have a hurricane or you have loss of power, sometimes your transfer switches are not working. Your generator is running, but there's no transferring the power to the building. So now we have implemented where every generator we do a monthly test on the generator. So we keep track of that information and make sure that it gets completed. So that's more on the preventive maintenance side, but it's important. The other thing that we have been doing that I think it helps with the overall cost and also reducing calls is making improvement to your infrastructure. For example, installing impact-resistant windows. Whenever we have a storm, which are very common in Florida, we have to allocate our employees to go and put up shutters. Places that don't have shutters, they have to put plywood up. They have to do certain things to prepare the facility prior to a storm. So when you add, these improvements to your building, then it reduces your cost or the need for your employees to be there and provide those services. Another example is we have been working for the last 4 years, and it's a 5-year program to upgrade all the lighting in the town to LED. So LED has two benefits. One is they're energy efficient and less cost to operate them, but also the requirement for maintenance is much lower. I mean, we replaced all the lighting in our fitness and aquatic center a couple of years ago. No one light had to be replaced during these 2 years, and I go to the gym every day pretty much, and I see it, and I haven't seen one light that is out. Prior to that, we always had calls to go and replace, a fluorescent light bulb that went out. So every time an employee have to travel there for a small item like that is probably an hour, 2 hours of his workday, depending on what it is. So I think you can make those improvements also on the whether it's capital improvement side or just add it to your regular maintenance, making some of these improvements to your facilities where they're more efficient to run and energy efficient as well.
All right, so I guess I'll be probably the only one in this room. I've been doing this for less than 3 months. When I saw the agenda, KPIs and technology is what made me want to come here, because right now we don't have that. We're not tracking it. I think that we're doing a good job getting to everybody, but we have no way to tell a story. We have no way to go back to the commission and provide that story for increasing funds to do certain things and stuff. So I don't have a whole lot to add that you guys have talked about, except for I'd love to see what you guys are doing, if you could send that out. Hoping to learn from you.
I'm in the same boat as Lance. I have nothing to measure. I just implemented that facility do preventive maintenance program, but there's one problem. I don't have any employees to manage. I outsource all of my work. So they're filling it in, my AC units, my generators, all that good stuff. But I do have a question. When I get staff, how are you paying them to be on call? Are they on call for a week? Do you pay them daily? So please.
So what we do is we have a program where we have one person identified as on call for a week at a time, and they get paid 32 extra hours of regular time pay. on top of their normal pay. So if they get called in after hours for that kind of an event, they don't get paid any overtime or anything like that. But if they still do work overtime on top of that, they'll get both the callback pay and the overtime pay. Because I joke about it a lot. I got two guys that are basically overtime whores. I mean, I'll look at their paycheck and be like, how'd you get 160 hours in a 2-week period? But they're working a lot of overtime on top of being, on call. So it's been very effective, because then when the guys do have to show up for something like the alarm goes off or something like that, it really doesn't bother them, because they're basically getting a week's extra pay. And if they have to show up for one day and that's it, it's well worth it. So it works out pretty well for us.
So we have actually a slightly different approach. So like our utilities department have kind of the same approach that you do, but in our department, they never went for that for whatever reason, and they have never wanted to change it. So basically, any employee that we call for overtime, they get paid automatically an additional 3 hours, whether they spend 10 minutes, 1 hour, they get paid automatically 3 hours. It's guaranteed. If they end up working 6 hours, then they get paid for the 6 hours. And we have a rotation basis. Obviously, I have a large number of employees. But if all of my employees say, no, I cannot go work overtime, then they become essential personnel, and they're obligated to come to work, or they could, face disciplinary action or termination. But we have never had that issue. But we just pay them the 3-hour overtime every time they come in.
So on the issue of tracking KPIs and stuff like that, we don't really do that either. What we do pay for, and I don't recall the name of it right off the top of my head, we pay for a work order system. So the way we work it is, Tom and I only oversee 3 buildings out of the city, so we don't have that much responsibility, fortunately. But what we do is we tell everybody to email. We have 2 supervisors, or actually a foreman and a supervisor. And so we have any requests emailed to the appropriate building's management. And then that management puts it into our work order system. And then the KPI that we track is how many days has the work order been opened. Now, because we just have several buildings, the guys that oversee each building kind of keep in the back of their head what's important and what's not. And then one of the big metrics I always tell them that we try to really work on is I don't get the phone calls, because if I get the phone calls, then I know something's going wrong. So it's usually, that's kind of our informal indicator of whether or not, we're on track and stuff like that. And I got to say that I barely get phone calls about stuff not getting done. Well, that's within our control, I should say. So it's unfortunate we just don't have, but we're working on as a city, we have a citywide program that our engineering department's undertaken, which is going to evaluate different software packages, different options. They've actually got staff budgeted. They're going to ramp up on the staff and start looking at our city as a whole, because we're decentralized maintenance, and they're going to start to put together a program to try to centralize tracking. And that's one of the things we've been talking about is, we're going to go through and look at big picture age of everything and start assigning values to it, and whatever software we go with, then we'll start tracking it from that point. But we're still in the creation stage of that.
We're probably similar to most of you, where we track the number of work orders created and closed each month. In addition, we track whichever trade they go to, and we're also tracking travel time for technicians versus their repair time that they spend, and time versus spent on meetings and vehicle maintenance. So just something that, and it varies by location. Those that have to travel, they're reactive, have to travel, obviously don't spend as much time on repairs as those that are stationed at a specific location. So.
Yeah, so measuring performance is tough when you have so many moving parts, is it not? I mean, how do you measure performance accurately, evenly? It's not really possible. We have a magnitude of policies and procedures that we resources to where we can show on paper what we do and how we do. But I feel like our key performance measures are identified better in lessons learned and in the policy reform. We don't try to create policy and procedures that are rubber stamped as permanent. They're all living documents, and we try to make sure that across the board, from projects to operations to business services to contract management to all the things that make us up, that we call back to those every 6 months, every 3 months, however often we need to, and update those policies through our lessons learned processes and the adjustments we make. So, but like I said, we have a lot of different ways we do it. We have description of need documents in the projects form, policy or procedures that go to a stakeholder, what we call a department sponsor, who writes down what they need before a project becomes gets put on the capital needs assessment and becomes a CIP project. They thoroughly define what their need is on paper. That's something that hasn't really been done in the long history of the county's existence, but in the most recent history, it's something that's definitely improved our performance to our customer service levels, and more so to prove what those expectations were. A lot of times in capital projects, these things are 6, 10, sometimes even 20 years long that don't get dusted off when they move closer and closer to being funded. And through reform, and my point of that is just through reform, we've adopted and amended these policies to reflect those gaps. So in that process, in our operations and maintenance with work orders and contract management and all the generators and all the fire panels and all that stuff, that's, again, we have those SOPs, we have those manuals, we modify them when things change. We have our restrictions like a lot of you do with low bid contracts that we have to manage really, really closely. And every time we get a new one, something changes those SOPs, something forces us to put things in there that we think should be mandatory or common knowledge. So it's just, for us, it's about policy reform, procedure, revisions and things like that that help us keep that performance and service level where we like it to be.
Enough said. Yeah, as Keith mentioned earlier, we're in the mix with Maximo right now. We used to be able to track a lot of KPIs through our older software, but once the owner of that software decided to pass away, he took everything with him. So we were sort of blindsided, and we had to hurry up and pick up a software that didn't really fit our needs. So we're going to go back to getting all our KPIs, getting all of our information, travel time, maintenance hours, asset management, figuring out, making sure we can track, how many times a motor went out on a piece of equipment. That gives me the life cycles. That's a big deal when you're wanting to do capital projects or chillers replacements, roof replacements, roof warranties. We're going to load this machine with a bunch of data, and they're telling me whatever data I put into it, I can get out of it. So that's our plan. After hours pay, it's $160 a week for call out, additional, and it's automatic 3 hours. And they're on rotation. Our guys are on rotation through a shop. We have 6 maintenance districts that they're on call. And again, if whoever refuses, if they can pass it back and forth, because you do have those overtime hogs that love to be on overtime. And I do see some of the checks that they get. I'm like, man, they're making more than me. But hey, God bless them. Let them have all that work. But we do have the 3-hour minimum through our union contract with the union. And it's $160. And anything above after 3 hours, it just compiles. They don't get an automatic 3 hours again if they get called back within that 3 hours.
As Mark was saying, we're going through, it seems like ever since I've been at Polk County, which is almost 5 years, that we've been looking at some type of CMMS to put into action. And it seemed like just before I got there, the gentleman had passed away and took all his codes and everything with them. So we were going through the process of putting in a software to get us through. But the one thing that I've seen with Polk County that is the biggest challenge is time and distance. Polk County is over 2,000 square miles. So when we're sending out people to do work requests, you know, the windshield time that they face is huge. It can be an hour to hour and a half from one location to another, just travel time. So those are the types of things, other KPIs and things that I was able to pull out when I first arrived that I can't get that type of information. I know that it's there. I know that it's an issue. Something else that came to my attention recently, and I started looking at it more in detail, was we see about the number of maintenance technicians per square foot. But if you oversee jails, it kind of skews the numbers. So depending upon what you're doing, one of the things that I found out is that if you're overseeing a jail, the maintenance tech per square foot is actually $33,000 per maintenance tech versus $50,000 on average nationwide. Well, we're at almost double that on both occasions. So we know that there are things and issues that we have got, that we face, that we've got to overcome or try to overcome, and hopefully by getting a software in that gives us the answers so that we can build that business case, then if we can do that with Maximo, then it will be worth the truckload of gold that we're paying them to implement it.
So my first 13 years with Martin County, I was kept under a rock. I worked as a building manager for our county jail, and my job was to please the sheriff's office, which was pretty important to the county. But I didn't get a lot of information, so I'm not going to offer you any information as to how much we pay or anything. But we broke the county into two. We divided it in half as far as building maintenance went. I ran my own crew for a large facility, and I had my own trades, and they were the staff that were on call for that particular facility, which not only was it a jail, it was a public safety complex, it was an emergency operations center, a fire rescue administration, the sheriff's office, and the jail, big property. But I ran that half of the county, and then another part of our department ran the rest of the buildings, and they had their own trades. So they had their on-call people, I had my on-call people. And they would only be on call about once a year, whereas my staff would be on call about 7 times a year. The first 7 years of my employment with Martin County, I was the on-call staff. And but that changed after that 7 years. But anyway, that's all the information I had on that.
At the city of Tampa, well, we've got, like Andrew, we've got our priority list for our work orders. We got the P1 emergency, and the KPI on that is, you know, our response time. We obligated to our call-out guys 1 hour, our elevator techs 1 hour response time. So, so every month we have to report, and it's posted on the City of Tampa website, our KPIs. So we're managing KPIs for emergency call-outs, the number of PMs that are completed monthly. That could be for overhead door maintenance, roof maintenance inspections, filter change-outs, HVAC equipment, and like that. And then one of the other KPIs is the number of work orders we get in per month and the completion rate on those work orders. Now, one thing that's been a challenge, like you guys said, about having the staffing to complete all that stuff. I mean, in the city of Tampa, facility management handles all buildings except enterprise, like water department, their enterprise, wastewater, and that. We do handle all the solid waste facilities and that, but one of our challenges been, and I've kind of put a stop to it, you get people calling in a work order that's actually a project. So I started up a project startup sheet that they have to complete, and their manager has to sign off on it, that they, want to proceed with this. And so that way we can do a CIP, or if they have funding, and then how it relates to when we can work that in. So that's helped a lot, and I also make them, this isn't something out of the norm, so provide me a fund stream with it too. Give me your fund stream. We'll do it. Just give me the money, show me the money. So we've kind of squashed that there. Also, one of the things that I implemented that we didn't have before is for the different departments, I created these matrix for Parks and Rec, what they were responsible for and what facility management handled. And that police department, fire department, their responsibility and where our responsibilities on equipment and all that. So, and that clarified a lot for the different departments. So that matrix really helped out. So we have that. But also, we also have meetings every month scheduled with the Parks and Rec department, because they're our biggest work order providers. They're 50% of our work orders. And so fire department, police department, we have monthly meetings with them to go over, their work orders and all. We use the TMA system. It's a cloud-based, and we can go in there and run a report on how much we spent, how many work orders, and the costs, which we have to do every budget year. How many dollars we've spent at each department, because they're always saying, well, we give you this much money per year, you're not spending it, and we show them. So another thing that we also do, we have, with the, I want to go back to your overtime call-out pay, and that we have 5 techs that are on standby. They're on rotation, but per their ATU contract, they get 2.5 hours call-out pay, overtime pay, and then they get standby pay. If they do not get any call-outs in an 8-hour period, then they get 3 hours pay. So, and that's worked out well. I don't know, next week they're voting on the new contract, so we'll see if that goes up. I mean, rumor has it they're asking for 9.5% increase, and the fire department just got it and the police department got it, so they want the same thing. I'll let Jamie add.
Hello. I think you got it all pretty much covered. A nice thing about our TMA system, it also handles all our preventive maintenance. It automatically generates the work orders for all our technicians and all our vendors. Our vendors get work orders basically dropped on them every week or month, so they know what kind of work, what we need to do for like our elevators, our sprinkler system, fire alarms, everything that's all the inspections, and also it generates our building inspections, which I think you said you do them every 5 years. We do them 5 years for park locations, and we do them 2 years for our main facilities.
Can you elaborate a little more on what a TMA system is?
It's a time management system. It's like a cloud-based system. I'm not sure what TMA actually stands for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know, but I think other municipalities use it, right?
Yeah, I can send that to you. It's a great system.
And you say it automatically generates work orders out of your preventative maintenance plan?
Yes. And it,
Sends that directly. We've got it programmed in there. We have all our equipment in there. And all the equipment also
So it works for asset management as well?
Yes.
Does it have any kind of strategic planning for asset management?
No,
Can you do
kinda
scenario-based
enter it in
scenarios?
yourself, how you want to manage the assets. You just kind of set the parameters, what you want, and when the work orders go out.
Okay.
And it also, we track CIP and operating costs projects through it too.
Appreciate that, thanks.
So we're currently going through a change, like a lot of you guys are, from our CMMS program is Cardigraph, and we're switching over to a EAM Tyler program, which is supposed to be all-encompassing, and it is being customized, Keith, for sure. So it's a lot of money, a lot of time. But right now, some of you guys track a lot of things we track per trade, per supervisor, but we also track the hours that were available, unplanned hours of leave, planned hours of leave, so we can try to associate what our capacities were. So we have high hopes for the new program. As far as projects go, last 2 years we changed up a lot of our big CIP programs where we were tracking what was encumbered or what was spent, and that's what a lot of the leadership and administration was looking at. But I think there was a hard time of just education and understanding of how long it actually takes to spend $1 in construction. So we broke out, we now have design in the year before construction for all major CIP projects. So that's helped out a lot, and it's helped us control our capacity of our project team for large capital projects. I'll let Mike talk about our on-call.
Yeah, so our on-call people, our entire staff, maintenance staff, takes turns being on-call. We've kind of give it to them to schedule who's going to be on call. It's worked very well. That way they work amongst themselves, who has vacation, who has what holiday they want to take. We pay a minimum 2-hour call out and $100 a week for being on call. So it's really worked out well, letting them have the ability to control their schedule. Got a lot of buy-in that way.
I'm in a little bit different situation from all the rest of you. All I do is run facilities maintenance at the jail in Sumter County. So I really don't track a whole lot of anything other than the phone calls I get from my boss because the light bulbs didn't get changed in the classroom in Charlie building, that kind of thing. So really, I have almost nothing to add other than the on-call thing.
Hello, hello. It's green again. So you guys have hit a lot. I wanted to mention a few things that I think maybe might be missing. Andrew, I think, is it you who has the SLAs on your website? One of us in this group, and I thought it was you, has a really good in-depth the SLA document, and even a PowerPoint that like explains it, that you use for presentations. It wasn't until like last year that I learned what an SLA was. Sorry, but I just learned. But that was a really good tool that I thought. It let everyone know what the expectations were of them and of us. If you don't know, I think it's a service level agreement. And it's like a contract. It basically says, you do these things and I'll do these things, and it lays everything out for you. That's a really good document if you want to steal it, because I did. But that was one thing I wanted to mention. The second one is if you guys are just starting out and developing some of your bullets for success, you know, what is success? I think you were talking about, like, how do you develop it? Like, how do you know what success looks like? You know, the 10 days, the 5 days, whatever. What we did at St. Lucie County when we developed all these is we did 2 things to start. We interviewed our technicians and we said, what does a successful day feel like to you for some of these things? And we interviewed every one of them. Like, you know, if you're asked to go replace an AC or fix an AC, I mean, how much time do you think it takes, and what's success? What makes you feel good? Because we realized that the technicians, them feeling fulfilled and feeling like they did a good job is part of that, right? That was number one. And we also interviewed all the customers and clients. So all the directors were in a room, and we're like, how long should all of these things take? And we had a long litany, a big list, half a day classroom time. And that helped with some of our more special clients who were demanding, shorter lead times or wanted things done right now. Because once the entire room and all the directors bought in on how long it should take to do things, they had a better understanding of an expectation. So by the time we measured success with our customers and our technicians, and we created the SLAs and we put it in writing and published it, that really reduced all of our special customers who needed special attention. They had a greater understanding of that, and it really helped with that. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, I can follow up with you because those are good points. We have service level agreements. We have partnership agreements. We have them back and forth. We have them from our side to other departments, and then from other departments even back to facilities. Most of them are great. Most of them work just fine, and they are easy to navigate, and the relationship and the partnerships are really good. There's a couple that no matter how much we define it and how much we, prioritize, and it just they don't ever meet those expectations. So I appreciate that, and like I said, the SLAs, yes, we've done that. One of our goals now is to try to just create, to manage expectation evenly, because it's the haves and have-nots on our side, right? It's the people, we're trying to be accountable to standards across the county to say that just because a parks department or a fire department has more money, that the space that they live in is nicer than the space of a public works department or another department who has less money. That is what we're charged with managing, is our countywide master space plan and those guidelines and reinforcing that each and every time is something that's been a challenge with a couple of different, high demanding departments. But something we're trying to do is maybe combine those different individual agreements into a guideline where it normalizes all the things, like if a master space plan is equal in all these categories, then by rule, it should be equal in your category too. So that's something that we're trying to develop that would better normalize those services and those levels of services that we're trying to adopt.
Green light. It's the old-fashioned game. All right. Well, that was a superb discussion, I think. I think there's an opportunity here. If you would like, I will post, if anybody who does have those KPIs, or like Hillsborough was just talking about, or Tampa was talking about, I've already put in the folder that had the QR code, I put the Pasco County one that I call our report card. But we can start putting that in there, and then you can start to compare and contrast and see what others are doing. I thought, Hillsborough, the way you've turned some of your KPIs into percentages with just about everything, I really like that. I think that's a maturity level on your KPI reporting that I thought was really good. So I'll be stealing some stuff from you guys, actually. So look forward to continuing that conversation. So with that, we are a touch behind schedule. Good conversation, though, which was, I would rather have these conversations than have break time. So please take a quick bathroom break, and then we will come back maybe in about 5 to 7 minutes and start up again, and we'll have our operations team here from Pasco talk a little bit about technology and facilities.